What is going on, YouTube people, today? A little look into the football market. Discussed this in yesterday's fatigue slash burnout slash meh video that it seems like football has not been getting the pump that it typically does leading up to the national. So I figured what better way to dig into it than a little bit of a charts and graphs video. That's right, going old school today. We got market movers fired up. Link in the description down below. If you want to play around with your own charts and graphs, there's a promo code down there, and you can also get 2 weeks for free. So let's go over the parameters here. We were looking at Prism Silvers today. I know it's not perfect, but generally speaking, it gives you a good overall vibe for where a particular player is at. We're looking at PSA 10s. We're looking at rookies only. I'm on the price movements page. We are looking at the last 90 days, which takes us back to early April, mid-April. Seemed like a good spot to kind of go from 180 days, and you get into, you're still before the Super Bowl, and then I wanted to get at least a little bit of a long tail on there. So the number one player, this is by dollar value, not by percentage, that has gone up the most over the last 90 days is Jordan Love. We'll look at what's going up and what's going down. I will say, as just something I noticed, and maybe I'll point a few of these. Actually, we'll do it right now. I'll point it out right now. So Kyler Murray is number 2 at 173. That's a 60% increase. Jordan Love's was only a 20% increase. One thing I did notice, and this trend definitely continues across a lot of players, you can see here, it's been a steady up, and then a little bit more of a ramp up over the last couple of weeks. Now, there was a pretty big gap there between sales. But a lot of this has been slow and steady wins the race, kind of. And then you'll see a lot of little acceleration here over the last, let's call it maybe 2 weeks. I think Anthony Richardson might have been another one that was like that. Yeah, you can see he was kind of whatever. And you remember, his cards actually came out this year, so they naturally start a little high. His didn't. CJ's went a little crazier. But back here, they were 400. They're currently up to 499, so up $100. But you can tell a lot of that has happened right here. Just in this last, that's the 28th right there. It was still at 400, and then it crept up $100 just over the last couple of weeks. So it's been a lot of, throughout the spring and summer, very small incremental gains. And then the last couple of weeks, it does seem like a lot of things have kind of gone up. Not crazy amounts. We're not talking pandemic level craziness here, but definitely little jump ups here and there. So speaking of AR-15, he is number 3 on the list, up $100 like we talked about before. That's 26% increase. Dak Prescott up 70%. Justin Jefferson. We have Jared Goff. Breece Hall, one of the other big percentage winners, up $50, but that's 76% for him. He was another one. Just kind of slow and steady. Not a ton of transactions on this one because his pop counts are kind of lower because he's not a quarterback. That was the other thing that kind of jumped out at me on here, just really quick. We have quarterbacks at the top in the first 4 slots. Then we have a wide receiver. We have Goff, another quarterback, and then a running back, a wide receiver, a quarterback. Micah Parsons, a defensive player. Deshaun Watson, of all people on this list, surprised me. Just to kind of backtrack real quick here, Amon St. Brown was another decent-sized winner, up 35%. Brock Purdy, up $42 in dollar value, but it's only actually a 5% change. So you're not even covering your selling fees on that one. Micah up 40%. Deshaun Watson up 25%. And this was another one that was just kind of slow and steady. You know, back here it was going for about just under $100, give or take. And then last sale here, like I said, we see that jump up at 175. But even if you take that out, it was sitting at around 140, 150 prior to that jump up sale. A few others kind of flirted with that number. Scrolling down a little bit, we got Jamar Chase, once again, another position player. Quentin Johnson, Sam Howell, quarterback again. Jonathan Taylor, running back. You're seeing a more mix of positions here, not just all quarterbacks. We have my boy Myles Garrett down here, up 20%, only a $22 change. That's the other thing to note here. I'm currently showing 20 cards on this list. From number 1 is up $200. Number 20 is only up $20. So not a ton of players have seen significant movement dollar value wise on their prices. Now, a lot can change. We still have about 2 weeks to go. And we have, so that's just to the national. And then we still have another probably 8 weeks, 9 weeks until the actual season starting itself. So still some time for some run up. And it does look like maybe things are starting to pick up a little bit. Now, let's flip this chart around and look at the air quote losers. And a lot of this is, I always usually say anything under 10% is almost within the margins of error. There's naturally going to be a little bit of swing on these guys' prices, just kind of the way that it works. Trevor Lawrence down about 15%, Tua down about 33%. One thing you're going to notice here, a lot of big names on this list have basically either done nothing or ticked down slightly. Lawrence signed an extension and went down. Tua, fantastic player, but tons of injury concerns. Jalen Hurts, people are beginning to kind of question his stuff. Scrolling down here, Justin Fields obviously is now a backup, so that hurt his prices. Drake London had a pretty rough season last year. Joe Burrow, down $55. He shows up on this list, but it's only a 3% drop. What's kind of notable here is that his stuff just hasn't gone up at all over the last 90 days. But he's already pretty pricey to begin with at just under $2K. Patrick Mahomes shows up on this list at a $50 drop, but once again, only a 1% change there. He's pretty much been at this 4-ish K number most of the spring/summer, kind of floating around $4,300, kind of give or take a little bit here or there. We see Bryce Young on this list down about 20%. Justin Herbert, kind of the same thing as Burrow, down 3.2%. Once again, margin of error. This isn't so much about him going down $40. It's just about the fact that his price hasn't really gone up at all. It's basically stayed flat. Now on Herbert, that's not as surprising given that they've kind of gutted his offensive weapons this past season. Then we start getting into more positional players here in the going down category. The one that kind of surprised me a little bit was Tank Dell, just given all the hype and heat that is on the Texans. Part of this could be because of the injury and they brought in Stephon Diggs, but he's down 33%. Could also be a little bit of more supply hitting the market on top of that. And then just kind of scrolling down here, we have Mike Evans, Will Levis, and Josh Downs finishing up the list. Now, one notable player here that did not make the list was CJ Stroud. I did pull him up on a separate chart over here with AR-15 just as a comparison. Over the last 90 days, he is dead on flat. He is up 0.8%. In that same time, as we mentioned before, AR-15 up 26%. Now, the thing to remember, if I kind of backtrack this a little bit, CJ Stroud came out with ridiculously high prices. I mean, his stuff, when it first hit the market in a PSA 10 silver, was going for well over $1,000. It quickly dropped to the high eights, 850-ish range. I don't know that it ever got much below 850. Then they did the Diggs trade. It kind of sparked some life into it. But as I mentioned with Anthony Richardson, you can see the same thing here. Obviously, over here, it's going to start super high up because that's just kind of what it does. Let me just kind of shorten this up a little bit. But as you see, as we move through the spring and summer, it dipped down a little bit, got into around the 850s. And then if we look over the last month or so, it has been trending up, specifically the last 3 sales here being at 930, 950, and 930, whereas prior to that, they were at the 850, 900 mark. So if I shorten this up even more, you can kind of see a little bit of an increase there, that 10% jump on CJ Stroud, but not crazily going up. It's basically, like I said earlier, basically been staying flat pretty much all summer long on his cards. AR-15 definitely getting the little bit more buzz, and he has been, I mentioned in yesterday's video that there's not a lot of chatter about like the young guys, like who's everyone flocking to. Earlier in the year, it was Kyler Murray. A lot of that had to do with him just kind of basically redshirting a year because of the injury. Then they brought in Marvin Harrison, and he got a little bit of that early spring/summer buzz. Now, and this kind of started before even now, AR-15 Anthony Richardson seems to be getting the midsummer pre-national buzz. He seems to be the guy that looks like is going to be maybe one a lot of people are chasing at the national. CJ Stroud probably as well. His stuff's always pretty popular right now. But Richardson feels like one of the names that we are going to hear on a lot of, you get into the show and it's like, who's people asking for? What was the player of the show? Who's everybody chasing? And it does feel like early on that we could be heading towards some Anthony Richardson buzz. I would not be surprised if he made a lot of people's lists if you talk about what cards people were looking for on the football side of things. So those are kind of interesting notes. Slow and steady over the spring and summer. Nothing too crazy on most players, really. Some guys just starting to kind of get a little bit of buzz over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. And a lot of that really in like the last week or so. And then the other thing I kind of noted just looking through those numbers was the amount of position players on there, on the percentages going up. Now, they're not huge numbers. It's not going to be like a quarterback where you buy a quarterback for 100 and then you sell it for 700 if he goes crazy and you 7x your value or whatever the hell it is. But there's definitely money to potentially be made in position players. Obviously, you got to pick the right player. And you're probably going to have to go more likely in the buying multiples route, because if, let's go back to that list really quickly and flip this around. If you bought a bunch of Breece Halls for, let's just call it $60 back in the beginning of the summer, yeah, they went up $47 or they went up a 76%, but it's only $47. So, if you actually want to make a decent chunk, you would have had to buy multiples of his card. Same with like someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's up 35%. Cool. It's only $45. So unless you had a couple of those things laying around, you're not really getting paid off on your correct call. Now, that could also get scary because the player prices could go the other way. Now, if things keep trending like this, slowly tick up, but nothing crazy happens, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when the season starts. I have done this video for a long time now, and one of the things that tends to happen is once the season starts, expectations meet reality, and usually prices start trending down and down quickly, especially for guys that have any sort of pump on them at all. And if we're not seeing huge run-ups, that could mean we could be in for, I don't know. Will prices not drop as much? I doubt it. I think that's wishful thinking. I still think a lot of these prices are pretty inflated, especially like on the Burrows and the Herberts, etc. But once that season starts, and if these guys underperform, how far do they drop then? So that is our little football market check-in. We haven't done one of these specifically on football in a while. But this is one of those things where it kind of sneaks up on you for sure. We do the weekly sports card market update. And a lot of times I go in there, even though I haven't really been showing a lot of football cards throughout the off season, I go in and look, and I look usually in shorter time frames, like over the last week or so as anyone jumped up. And when players are moving like this with these small incremental ups, they don't really stand off the page. And then all of a sudden, 3 months go by and you zoom out and you're like, holy cow, that guy's actually up a pretty decent chunk. But it's little, it's $5 here, $3 there, $5 here, $10 here over the course of, 60, 90, 180 days. So, as always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. We will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.